Growing up, I have always had a soft spot for Johns Hopkins, mainly because I love their lacrosse team. With that being said, their football team has a chance to accomplish something special in the Division III playoffs this year. Last year, they just fell short, losing to Mount Union in the semifinals of the playoffs. This year, as the number 2 seed in their region, they could go on a run. Is this finally the Blue Jays' year? This is the rise of Johns Hopkins football. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college ball content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know who you think wins the Division III national title this year in the comment section below. To understand the rise of Johns Hopkins football, we need to go back to when legendary head coach Jim Margraf was named head coach in 1990. Margraf had played quarterback at Johns Hopkins and served as the school's quarterback coach in 1982. All he did was win with the Blue Jays, leading them to their first conference title since 1969, in 2002, and 14 Centennial Conference titles, including 4 straight from 2002 to 2005, and 10 straight from 2009 to 2018. He also led the Blue Jays to 10 Division III playoff appearances into the 2018 semifinals, where they fell to Mount Union 28-20. He had a 221, 89-3 record over 29 seasons. Then, on January 2nd, heartbreaking news would break. Jim Margraf had passed away from a heart attack. Just like that, he was gone. The Johns Hopkins newsletters Brandon Wolf wrote back in 2019, "Sometimes it's difficult to grasp when you're around a legend, but it was even more difficult with Coach. He never spoke of himself as a legend or gave himself preferential treatment. It was always about the players and the other coaches and putting them on the pedestal. He was a humble man, quickly deflected any and all praise, and there were certainly plenty, aimed at him towards everyone else. I remember he once said that he didn't care for any awards or recognition. All he wanted to do was coach football. Coach took over a team in 1990 that didn't know how to win and turned it into a national power that has come to be recognized as one of the top teams in Division III, as he became the all-time winningest coach not just in Johns Hopkins history, but also Maryland State history. A coach at the top of his game was taken too soon. Former fullback and Blue Jays offense coordinator Greg Chimera would be named the school's next head coach. The Blue Jays never stopped winning, making 2 Division III playoff appearances and going 40-7 over 4 seasons, with the 2020 season being canceled. Chimera would then leave to become the offense coordinator and quarterback coach at Penn. His .85 winning percentage is the highest in program history, and his 40 wins ranks 3rd in program history. The Blue Jays would go back to the well, naming former wide receiver and defensive coordinator Dan Wadika head coach. Wadika put together a fantastic first season, leading the Blue Jays to a 12-2 record and back to the semifinals of the Division III playoffs, as they would lose to Mount Union 45-37. Heading into the 2025 season, it looked like Johns Hopkins was going to be tested early and often, as they had a tough non-conference schedule that featured road games against Ithaca and Susquehanna and a home game against John Carroll. Although it was a brutal non-conference schedule, they did return quarterback Bay Harvey as a graduate student. Harvey would get hurt 3 games into the 2024 season after throwing for 613 yards and 4 touchdowns, and rushing for 148 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. In 2023, Bay joined Heisman winner Jaden Daniels and North Central's Luke Lehannon as the only quarterbacks to account for over 35 passing touchdowns and 10+ rushing touchdowns. Harvey finished the 2023 season throwing for 3,297 yards, 36 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, while also rushing for 627 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Harvey became the first player in over 30 years to be named a team captain 3 times for the Blue Jays. They also returned running back Jeff Schroeder, who was actually from my area. Schroeder entered the season with 1,541 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns in his career, and was coming off a big 2024 season. They returned leading receiver Cole Crotty from 2024, who ended the season with 140 receptions for 1,846 yards and 14 touchdowns in his career. It also looked like sophomore Josh Moore could take a major step. They also added Malik Frost from Hampden-Sydney. On the defensive side of the ball, the Blue Jays needed to replace some of their top tacklers from the 2024 season, but still had a strong team. They returned defensive lineman Xavier Newell, who was named one of the defensive team captains, and was coming off a season where he finished with 48 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and 1 fumble recovery. Defensive back Carson Bordeaux was viewed as the quarterback of the defense and finished as a first-team All-American in 2024 with 66 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 7 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, and 1 fumble recovery. The defense, though, was still viewed to be extremely strong as they had a complete unit covering all of its lost production. The Blue Jays were viewed as one of the best teams in the country at the Division III level, heading into the season being voted the 3rd best team in the D3Football.com preseason poll. Johns Hopkins earned 521 points in the poll of 25 coaches, sports information directors, and members of the media, with the number 3 preseason ranking matching the Blue Jays showing in the final 2024 D3Football.com poll. This was the highest ranking Johns Hopkins had ever earned going back to when the poll debuted in 2004. Carnegie Mellon was the only other Centennial Conference team to be ranked coming into the season at number 18. John Carroll was ranked number 25, and Susquehanna was ranked 4th in the nation and was coming off an appearance in the D3 playoff semifinals. Ithaca received votes in the poll as well. The only teams ranked ahead of Johns Hopkins were North Central and Mount Union. Johns Hopkins would open up the season with a dominant win over Ithaca, beating them 42-14. The Blue Jays went up 28-0 at half and never looked back. They scored on 4 of their first 5 possessions, and Schroeder finished with 3 touchdowns on the ground. They would then beat 21st ranked John Carroll 27-13. That set up a huge top 5 showdown between the Blue Jays and Susquehanna. The Riverhawks would take a 7-0 lead, but Johns Hopkins would score 33 unanswered points going into the 4th quarter, up 33-7. The Blue Jays would win 40-22 as Schroeder rushed for 120 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Harvey threw for 258 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, while also rushing for 70 yards on the ground. It was only the 2nd loss the Riverhawks experienced during the regular season since 2022. They would then start conference play, dominating Dickinson 55-10 or hosting Carnegie Mellon. At first, it looked like the Blue Jays were staring down their first loss of the season, going into half down 24-7, but they would rally to come back and took the lead with less than 5 minutes left to beat the Tardans 28-27. They would proceed to dominate Ursinus 52-21, Gettysburg 59-21, Muhlenberg 47-26, and McDaniels 42-0, before traveling to Lancaster, Pennsylvania to play number 25 Franklin and Marshall. The winner of the game was going to win the Centennial Conference, and Johns Hopkins was planned to be one of the top seeds and earn a bye for the Division III playoffs. Hopkins ended halftime up 21-14, but a 4th quarter touchdown by the Diplomats forced the game into overtime. Johns Hopkins would score a touchdown on their drive, and so would Franklin and Marshall. Instead of playing for the tie, the Diplomats went for 2 and got it to pull off the upset 29-28 and win the conference title. The Blue Jays outgained the Diplomats 440-285 yards, but would not be enough. Bay Harvey would finish the regular season throwing for 2,461 yards, 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, while also rushing for 395 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. Jeff Schroeder led the team in rushing with 1,000 rushing yards and 18 touchdowns. Browning Traynor led the team in tackles with 71, while the defense held teams to 81.1 rushing yards per game. The Blue Jays beat teams by an average score of 42-18.3 per game and rushed for 194.7 yards per game while passing for 268.1 yards per game. Bordeaux would be named Defensive Player of the Year, while the team had 19 All-Centennial selections, breaking the school record by 2 selections. The Blue Jays would be given the number 2 seed for their quarter of the bracket, earning a bye with an at-large bid. They will host the winner of Springfield and Cortland, and the 1 seed in their quarter of the bracket is Christopher Newport. I think Johns Hopkins can compete for the national title this year, and I cannot wait to see how the Division III playoffs turn out. But what do you think? Who wins the Division III national title this year? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos, YouTube Things You Will Love, right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.